What's going on, our space fans? Today we got a story about a friend that saved another friend with some advice, and then a couple other people that are looking for some advice. Let's give it to him, shall we? Starting things off with how my best friend stopped me from making the worst mistake. A little backstory. My best friend and I met in middle school, and we've been friends ever since. We've been there for each other through thick and thin, and when she got married, I was her maid of honor, and similarly, she was mine at my wedding. And as such, I was her shoulder to cry on during her divorce, 6 years later, though at the time, she didn't tell me the reason for said divorce. Anyway, my husband and I were married for 5 years at this point, and due to him consistently traveling for work and our ongoing arguments, I felt the disconnect in our marriage. It got so bad one night that he had to sleep in the guest room, and because he was traveling early the next morning, it meant he might leave without saying goodbye to me. So sure enough, he left without so much as a word to me. That action alone made me feel so unwanted and unattractive that I convinced my best friend to accompany me to a pub to blow off some steam. I showed up at her apartment because I knew she had 50% custody of her 2 kids and had to move out of her marital home, so she had most of her evenings free. We arrived at the local pub and I immediately went for the strong stuff to try and drown out my frustrations, whereas my friend stuck to orange juice, which is surprising considering the fact that she drinks the most between the two of us. As the evening went on, there was this guy who kept approaching me. He was gentle in his speech and confident in his words, and I won't lie, after all the arguments I was coming from, this was like a breath of fresh air. To this day, I am not sure why, but I found myself confiding in a total stranger about the issues in my marriage. As we talked, he would comment on how my husband was an idiot for leaving such a beautiful wife in her time of need. Cheesy and Dalmia, I know, but it seemed to go with the mood. And how there were so many men who would jump at the chance to fill his role. Me not being in my right state of mind to realize this total stranger was disrespecting my husband, which in turn was disrespecting my marriage, didn't even stop him as he held my hand and moved his chair closer to mine. He then leaned forward, but right before he got too close, I heard a thump and a loud crash. I saw him on the floor. I look up to see my best friend behind him. She stepped over him, grabbed my hand, and pulled me out of the pub. Whatever alcohol was in my system must have evaporated just from the look she gave me. As soon as we were outside, she exploded. She asked me how I could be so stupid and if I realized what I would have jeopardized if she didn't intervene. There was a moment of silence after her initial outburst. She took a deep breath, led me to one of the outside benches, and told me the real reason for her divorce. Like me, she said she was having communication issues in her marriage, and due to the constant fighting, she found herself confiding in a male coworker. Unfortunately, it developed into a 5-month affair. During that time, she was crippled by guilt, but equally as intoxicated with lust. It only ended because her husband found a video of her and her other man and her Facebook Messenger. She said the look of defeat, shame, and anger in her husband's eyes made her realize the gravity of what she had done. She begged him for a second chance. She was willing to do anything to save her marriage and family, even to the point of allowing him to sleep with another woman. This only enraged him, and he pushed for divorce and full custody of the children with her video as evidence. She said ever since being exposed, whatever lust or affection she had for her other man disappeared without a trace. She had since blocked him on all forms of contact and found another job. She then held my hand and told me she has to live with the fact that the only home her children will ever know will be a broken one, and it came about by her hands. She also added how no words exist to express the guilt and regret she feels each time she opens her eyes every morning, that she would gladly give a kidney if it meant she could have her family back. She pleaded with me not to be like her, to not go down a road even remotely similar to hers, that as long as I have a chance to work on my marriage, I should take it with both hands and hold on tight. It's been 6 years since that night, and honestly, I can say my marriage has improved greatly. Not perfect, but improved. We've been blessed with 2 beautiful twin boys. We don't argue as much, but when we do fight, we absolutely end it with a kiss. The kiss is my idea. I just find it incredibly sad that one of the major contributors to the success of my marriage was the failure of my best friends. Pretty lucky lady to have a friend like that. Let's see what the community thinks. Ethan V says, I have to commend your friend for having the guts to call you on your crap and literally physically intervene. Not many friends do that. Too many people condone affairs as some sort of romantic act. Chicken Hugs for You replied, yes. What the freak is up with that? Spetsy55 also chimed in. You see it normalized in lots of romantic movies. The person is engaged or married but then finds their soulmate and an affair ensues. The most ridiculous thing is we, the audience, condole and sympathize with them because they are meant to be, and yet they are cheating and lying and destroying another person's life at the same time. But the audience doesn't think about that. You just see the undeniable love between the main actors. Echo 2111 wanted to chime in with, I really wish more WSs and best friends were like yours. Sadly, so many stories of best friends encourage WWs to cheat and helping cover up affairs. I just have this image in my head of her yanking this guy to the floor mid-pucker, not knowing what hit him, and frankly, it's hilarious. But all jokes aside, seriously, she may have been a terrible wife, but in that moment, she was the best friend you could ever have. I can honestly picture her rage in that moment by the way you told the story. I can imagine that it hit her 3 ways. 1, seeing this douchebag creeping on a married woman, telling you everything you want to hear. 2, watching you slowly slip into making a mistake that will carry lifelong consequences, not just for you, but everyone around you. And 3, combining 1 and 2 to see a mirror image of herself and her own mistakes, which, by the sound of it, hit her the hardest. Then, there's some updates and questions answered. For my best friend, it has been such a painful lesson that it actually made some changes in her that left me worried about her at times. A prime example is when there was one relationship she tried to have after her divorce, but the guy was the definition of controlling. He would question all her decisions, insult her in a joking manner when we were all out as friends, and just be a jerk to her all in all, and she would just take it. I tried to confront him on multiple occasions, but she always stopped me until he made a joke about her ex-husband, and then she just snapped. She called him an insecure man-child whose only joy in life was to degrade people verbally and wasn't even half the man her ex-husband was. At this point, it was clear to all of us that she is still very much in love with her ex-husband and was only dating this guy as a form of self-punishment, as messed up as that is. As for her ex-husband, he was in a serious relationship with a beautiful young law student. And as much as I hate to admit this, but she was absolutely gorgeous and terrifyingly smart, if I'm being honest. The only reason why that relationship ended was because she had to go back to her family in Argentina due to an emergency and he wouldn't do long distance. She has since chosen to remain in Argentina and help care for her father, who unfortunately has Alzheimer's. Now, on the front of what has been happening currently, when the pandemic hit, my best friend's ex offered her to move back to their marital home, to which she jumped at the opportunity. She sleeps in the guest room, but is happy to be under the same roof as her family after a long time. She says cooking dinner for her family and not having to leave at the end of the evening is oddly fulfilling and is actually dreading the day she has to move out again. What an interesting end to that tale. Let's move on to the next one and see if we can offer our own advice. This one says, I want advice on my wife's idea to fix our marriage after she cheated. I, 35 male, recently learned that my wife, 33 female, cheated on me about 1.5 years ago. My wife and I have been together for nearly 4 years, married for 2. January 7th will be the 4-year anniversary of our first date. On December 26th, we were doing a Zoom game night with 3 other married couples. We were playing Never Have I Ever. If you don't know the game, it is a drinking game. One person says something they have never done, and anyone who has done it takes a drink. It's a fun game that can lead to some funny stories. One of the women, let's call her Amy, said what she had never done before. I'm pretty sure this was meant as a joke. I haven't talked to Amy since this happened, but I don't think there was any intention or maliciousness or anything like that. Amy said, Never have I ever cheated on my spouse. Remember, there were 4 married couples playing. If you guessed that my wife took a drink, then you are correct. Everyone laughed and shrugged it off as a joke, even me. Several people made jokes about it, and I even said something like, I guess we're getting divorced in 2021. The game night continued as if the incident was forgotten, and it didn't get brought up again. Literally everyone seemed to think it was a joke and didn't give it a second thought. But I noticed a slight change in my wife's manner. After the game night, I questioned her as she tried to dismiss it, but I kept asking. She seemed visibly shaken. Eventually, she admitted that she cheated on me a few times during the summer of 2019. She said it was with only one guy, and she is not in touch with him in any form, and she feels really bad about it. The guy was an employee at her company, but worked on the West Coast. We live on the East Coast, and he was in town for a couple weeks for some project. While she was working late, she went back to his hotel room a couple of times. When the project was over, he went back. Apparently, he is married with children back there. My wife is no longer at the company. She lost her job due to the COVID situation, but I earned plenty of money, so there was no issue. She was doing some freelance stuff online, but she has pretty much been a full-time housewife over the past year. It is difficult to completely describe her emotional state over the past week, but she seems to be quite a wreck. She's constantly apologizing and begging me to come back to the main bedroom. I've been sleeping in the guest bedroom. She tells me about all the ways she has tried to be a better wife over the past year because she realizes what a mistake she made. I will admit, we don't have disagreements or anything anymore. I guess I didn't notice it, but she doesn't get angry at me about anything anymore. Like I said, she's been a great housewife, cooking and cleaning and everything. She lets me relax after work, as she has been initiating sex frequently, often just doing me the favor if I feel too tired. I definitely feel like we have been having more sex, and she does seem to have been a more caring and attentive partner. While I feel numb most of the day, I get these waves of anger and hatred like I've never felt. Now to my question at hand. She has been begging me every day to give our marriage a second chance. I don't know if it's relevant, but we don't have any kids. The house belongs to my parents, actually. My father made a fortune in real estate. A lot of my financial assets are already pretty well protected due to some help from my father's accountant, so I'm not too worried about getting a divorce, but I have already reached out to my lawyer. Wife keeps coming to me with different ideas on how to fix the marriage. A couple of hours ago, she suggested opening the marriage on my end but keeping it closed on hers, and that this could continue for as long as I need it. I've been sitting here having a drink or two, and it sounds like it's worth a shot. What's the worst that could happen? I'm tempted to get her to agree to it on video. She has even said she will help me find women. I'm definitely considering her offer, although she wants me to do marriage counseling at the same time. I just don't know what to do. Does this work for anyone? It sounds tempting, but also that is too good to be true. Let's see what the community thinks first. Poll 454613 says, she realizes the money train might leave and is doing her best to keep you happy. Are you happy? Would you be happy in an open relationship, knowing that if she ever decides to step out again, you won't have a leg to stand on in the conversation? Fragrance Spray thinks, your wife cheated on you multiple times less than a year into the marriage? I suspect you're getting the trickle truth. She's been trying to make it up to you, it seems to me, not because she wants to be a good partner, but out of guilt, which doesn't seem sustainable for that long. She's offering a half-open marriage, but I'm not sure how that fixes anything. If you wanted an open marriage, that's fine, but a half-open marriage will probably result in making you feel like you're doing something wrong and her resenting you for it. It sounds like one of those things she proposes out of guilt to show you how committed she is, but would be upset if you actually took her up on the offer. My suspicion is that what you'd eventually get is an open marriage, where you think it's only open on your side, but she would do what she wants in secret again. She'd justify to herself by saying that it's an open marriage, so she should be free to do what she wants too. The fact that she's unemployed, you provide financial security, and that in a divorce, she wouldn't get a payout properly plays into it as well. What, within her, convinced her it was okay to cheat? And how can you have any assurance that it was the only time it happened and that it won't happen again? I predict she'll start talking about having children as soon as she thinks your relationship is on firmer ground, so it won't look so obvious that she's trying to secure your commitment. Definitely some good points. Tread lightly, my friend. Next up, is it rude to ask for your money back if they, partner of 4 years, were cheating on you with multiple people? I realized that something was off this year when they became less responsive, but they chalked it up to stress at work and at home. Now I know different. For the past 4 years, in my long-distance relationship, I devoted myself mentally, physically, and solely to her. She was the most important person to me after my family, and things were good. We would meet up as well. I not only helped her out financially when needed, but also cultivated a mutual collection of antique stickers that cost me upwards of $2,000. It involved a lot of time and money. It involved me not something for myself that I could have. She would search for the unique ones online, do research, and I would pay for them. The collection is with her at this time. I thought it was a nice way to let her know she's in my thoughts and something to do together. When she needed a loan, another $2,000, for a conference last Christmas, I obliged. But then COVID happened, and she lost one job, and I didn't think it would matter to ask for it later. That we were a team. Due to COVID, travel became impossible, and she became distant. And on being asked, it would be chalked up to that she's not in a good place and work and such. But I had my suspicions. I outright asked them as well, but they balked at it and turned in on me. But I had no proof, so I waited and hoped I was wrong. On Christmas this year, we finally met up, and it was like old times. She was herself again, but used my card a few times to get stuff that she can't get back in her work country. It was only when we slept together that I find out that she's sleeping with another man in her work country. And not only did he get the daily communication and such that exists in a relationship, which she took away from me, but she would cook him food, pay for his gas money, buy him coffee, which she never did with me. In addition to that, man, who doesn't know she's with me? She's also averaging 4 to 5 one-night stands from Tinder and Bumble, asking to be put in her place, and used roughly, etc. I knew she liked the degrading talk in the bedroom and always obliged happily, but I didn't know it wasn't enough. The icing on the cake? She used my card to pay for gifts for that man and other men she is seeing, all the whole while telling me how I'm the best and the most amazing thing in her life and such. She tells the same things to that man too. Can there be any higher level of disrespect? She wants to see me again before she travels, and doesn't know I know. I don't know if any of the men know about each other. I want to sit her down and hold her accountable. I want to ask her, why wasn't I enough? Or did she ever feel any iota of guilt or shame getting them gifts from my money? Or why did she treat them better than she did me despite all that I've done for her, not out of obligation, but as someone who cares for another person? I want to ask for my money back, specifically because she understands actions have consequences, because perhaps she won't feel remorse. My friends tell me to cut my losses and walk away. No need to engage further, but I want to ask her point blank if I ever meant anything to her. Should I ask for my money back and an explanation, or just tell her I know and walk away? She might be dealing with something or a past hurt, but I don't believe it is an excuse to treat someone like she treated me. Yikes, that's rough, man. Let's see how the community reacts. Bensel McPrush says, your friend is right. You will waste your life away if you sit expecting a cheater to show remorse and give you closure. Anna Ethema says, your friend gave you good advice. Cut your losses and walk away. Consider it an expensive life lesson. Church Pigeon thinks this. You won't get anything from her, not money or any sort of closure. I understand you're hurt and need to hear why you couldn't be enough. But please understand that her doing this is all about her and nothing about you. People like this tend to have a hole inside of them, and they try to fill it with others because they don't have happiness within themselves. No Kalwe says exactly this. We don't always get closure. It sucks and is tough to explain, but sometimes closure for us has to be just accepting what is and moving on. Spark JH says, it's not rude, and you are owed that, but that fact is not mutually exclusive from the fact that it will be a much greater consequence if you dump her as emotionlessly as possible and ghost her. If she's anything but a psychopath, it will leave more of an impression if you kill yourself out of her life. Please don't actually kill yourself. She doesn't deserve to have you in her life, and she has revoked her privilege to see you in any state of vulnerability. I'd agree with your friend that you should cut your losses and walk away as completely and emotionlessly in front of her as possibly. Do it to protect yourself, not to hurt her. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you don't need to know the answers to the questions you want to ask her. You want to know them. Don't put yourself through that. This is from personal experience. This is why you don't do it. But you have a higher chance of making an impression on them if you, quote-unquote, kill yourself out of their life. You have to stop caring about their future and looking for answers that you will never trust is the full truth. You have to want to love and protect yourself more than you want to keep believing them. Please listen to the people here who have gone through this. Hold tight to your reality and walk away with as little time and space for her manipulations as possible. And then never allow this horrible person back into your life.